What's up, everybody? John TheMorgile here, going to do a video response to your favorite bonehead globe Earth troll, Lie Man Dan. So let's just get right on into it.
The problem with people trying to debunk the heliocentric model is that people don't fully understand the heliocentric model.
Oh, okay. So enlighten us, Dan. Grace us with your infinite knowledge about the heliocentric model and all of your evidence for it. Please do. I really can't wait to see this. You know, I didn't even think it was possible to get a line of sight towards Venus, quite frankly, after 10 or 11 o'clock p.m. There just is no explanation for it in the globe Earth, ball Earth heliocentric theory.
Hello all and welcome along to another edition of the ever popular Flat Earth Friday. That was a YouTuber called TheMorgile, who I believe is a member of the infamous Globe Busters team.
Oh, you believe, but you're not sure, you just believe.
He feels he's discovered a problem with the planet Venus that completely unravels the heliocentric model. Unfortunately for him, he couldn't be more wrong.
And I suppose you have lots of evidence to support that claim that I'm wrong about Venus shouldn't be able to be seen from the ball Earth after, say, 11 o'clock p.m. You have evidence for this, or you're just going to make a claim that I'm wrong?
Right, let's see what all the fuss is about.
What's up, everybody? John TheMorgile here, going to do a quick flat Earth video for you. Hope you enjoy it. This one is really great evidence against the ball Earth theory. Starting out, we've got a diagram of the solar system that I pulled from online source that even globe Earthers will say is adequate.
Well, the planets are in the right order, I suppose. Scale is all over the place, though.
Yeah, you cheeky little shill. I grabbed that image from a science website that ball Earthers can agree that that is the scale of the so-called solar system. But of course, you've got something to say about everything that I state because you're a frickin' troll. Sure, it's not 3D, it's nothing fancy, nothing special, but it is adequate to describe the inner solar system. And the big issue, real quick, is this past Saturday, the 16th of June, 2018, Venus was visible in the night sky well after 11 o'clock p.m. Eastern.
Oh no, Venus was visible in the sky after 11 p.m. Why ever could that be?
See, your sarcastic little comment there goes to show that you refuse to skeptically scrutinize the heliocentric model. You're the type of person that will believe that the Earth is a spinning ball no matter what evidence is presented to you to the contrary. You're not going out on any sort of limbs, you're not proving anything, you're just disagreeing with what I'm saying and reverting to the conditioning and programming that everyone has undergone since they were children to solidify this belief in a spinning ball Earth. But in terms of making any sort of rational disagreement to my claim here, any sort of rational argument against the fact that we shouldn't be able to see Venus after 11 o'clock p.m., doesn't exist. There is no, you have no argument. You're just going to try to make me look stupid because everyone thinks the Earth is a spinning ball, and so it's very easy to poke fun at someone who's claiming otherwise. However, if you were to actually look at this evidence and skeptically review the ball Earth theory, you'd realize that no, we should not be able to see Venus after, certainly not after 11 o'clock p.m. And if you take a look at this image here, my friend Jason in Michigan shot this after 11.
Oh man, he's even got a picture. What is going on?
Well, of course, that's because if I didn't put a picture in there, you globe Earth trolls would say that it was a lie. So, now if you look at online sources, they'll say that Venus actually set at 11, but clearly this thing had another good at least half hour, 45 minutes before it would have set behind the horizon here.
Okay, I'll check an online source. Oh, look. For Michigan, the heliocentric model says that on the 16th of June 2018, Venus will set at 11:43 p.m. So that means that the photo taken is pretty much exactly what you'd expect. Your opening argument is already null and void.
Okay, first of all, that is not my opening argument, and the point you're making is not at all germane to the proof here. Um, as you can see, when Venus will set depends on your location. So I just took three random locations, Denver, Detroit, and Deltona, the three Ds, and you can see that you get different set times for Venus depending on your elevation. Also, maybe if you're in a valley, it's going to set sooner for you if you're in a valley than if you're on top of a mountain. And so, the fact that you claim that makes my opening argument null and void is so typical of globe Earth shills. It has nothing to do with my argument, sir. The fact of the matter is, one online source that I checked said that Venus would set at around 11, and another one said it would set at around 11:45, and of course that was because of the location. But it has nothing to do with my argument. I was just trying to get a sense of when Venus should have set that night, and of course it has to do with your elevation. Now, here's another point that I need to make real quick. Let's play back what you said just a second ago.
For Michigan, the heliocentric model says that on the 16th of June 2018, Venus will set at 11:43 p.m.
No, sir. The heliocentric model doesn't say that Venus will set at that time. Observation says that Venus will set at that time. You see, that's the thing with globetards, is they think that observation somehow supports the heliocentric model, and you use the terms interchangeably. But the fact of the matter is observation says that Venus should set at 11:43 p.m. that evening, not the heliocentric model. And in fact, the heliocentric model says we should never see Venus at 11:43 p.m. because it should be on the opposite side of the damn Earth from us, for crying out loud. And so the big problem with this is, of course, the fact that in the heliocentric theory, Venus and Mercury as well are, we're talking about Venus here, is supposedly on a tighter orbit around the Sun compared to the Earth. And so how would it be possible for someone on the night side of Earth to get a line of sight towards Venus?
Here comes another example of two-dimensional thinking.
Right. No, actually it's not two-dimensional thinking. This is in the third dimension. You shouldn't be able to see Venus well after sunset on the ball Earth. Okay, so just took this same diagram to scale and expanded it a bit. But how would it be possible on this ball Earth here to, after 11 o'clock p.m., which would position you, somewhere around right here on the ball, your line of sight is going to be tangent to this curve. So obviously the side of the Earth that's away from the Sun is going to be the night side at any point on this hypothetical orbital trajectory. And if an observer is positioned on this, clear on the night side of the sphere, obviously by after 11 o'clock p.m., their line of sight would be tangent to this curve. And so if we'll just assume in a perfect world that this point here would be right about here would be midnight, so somewhere around in here would be about 11. And of course that line of sight is going to be tangent to the curve. And so it is quite impossible to have a clear line of sight towards the inner solar system, Venus in this particular case, after 11 o'clock p.m. Just simply does not work in the ball Earth model. As you can clearly see, this line of sight is never going to converge with Venus's alleged orbital path.
I've allowed him to show us his complete ineptitude at grasping a three-dimensional universe before I comment. I'm not even going to mention scale here because that's a whole different video. What TheMorgile is saying here though is strictly true if we were trying to view Venus during an equinox.
No, actually this is strictly true whether it's equinox or solstice. You can't see behind you. Like face forward, can you see what's behind you? Okay, tilt your head up even 90 degrees. Hell with 23.4 or 66.6. Tilt your head up 90 degrees. Can you see what's behind you now?
Which is what his model is portraying.
What my model is portraying? No, you get your head out of your ass, sir. What your model purports is that from the night side of Earth, we can somehow see clear on the opposite side of the Earth because of axial tilt during the solstice? That is frankly absurd. And if you were to just look at this skeptically, the ball Earth that is, skeptically, you would see that this observation of Venus is impossible.
Look, on September the 21st, Venus sets at 8:29 p.m, just 58 minutes after the Sun, so of course we wouldn't see Venus anywhere near 11 p.m. The evidence you supplied in the form of the photo was taken on the 16th of June, just 5 days away from the summer solstice.
Okay, I really love this graphic that you put up here, so I'm going to use this as your own graphic. So I'm assuming that it's perfect and omnipotent. But so your argument is that if you're standing here on the ball, a microscopic little speck compared to this ball, you're telling me that you believe that you could see something that is clear on the opposite side of the Earth, millions of miles away through the ball. So you think that you can see up and around this large curve and then see Venus millions of miles away because of this axial tilt? That is preposterous. It doesn't matter whether you're standing at the equator or somewhere in the northern hemisphere in the United States, or even if you were, say, up here in northern Canada. Perhaps if you were close to the pole, you'd be able to see Venus at 11 o'clock p.m. on this ball. But frankly, sir, your diagram here proves my point very nicely. If you're standing here on this ball, or even here, or here, or even right up here, way up towards the north, you really actually think that you're going to be able to see around this curve and see something that's clear on the opposite side of the day side of the Earth. Wow. How obtuse could one possibly get? And see, that's the big problem with ball earthers. I can make a point, a valid, truthful, simple point, which absolutely debunks the heliocentric theory. Clearly, 100% debunks it, just like this, Midnight Venus. And what you're going to do is you're going to twist it and say, oh, he doesn't understand the heliocentric model. Ha ha ha. Look, it's the tilt of the Earth. But are you actually going to break down the geometry of the situation and prove that you would be able to see Venus after 11 o'clock p.m. from anywhere but perhaps the North Pole? Or you're just going to make claims, call me stupid, say that I don't understand the heliocentric model, and then case closed, because you have the benefit of science with a capital S, or theoretical alliance, on your side, and it's very easy for you. But in fact, if you look at this evidence again and try to understand how we could possibly see Venus from 11 o'clock p.m., solstice, equinox, or whatever, doesn't matter, you'll understand the fact that it should not be possible on the ball. But bravo to you for proving absolutely nothing but your inability to grasp reality, and using the programming that everyone's been subjected to since they were children to prove your point. But not facts. No, not geometry, not facts. You'll use peer pressure. Way to science, bruh. Way to science.
Oh, look at me. I'm Lyman Dan. I can see Venus from the night side of the Earth because of the tilt. Yeah, that's the ticket. It's a tilty ball. The Earth is a ball because it's a ball and it's tilty. It's a tilty ball, and I'm Lyman Dan. I can see through the Earth clear to Venus.
And, the fact that you try to use axial tilt as some sort of evidence against this point, as if I or anyone else in the flat Earth truth reality has never heard of this thing called axial tilt, that's ridiculous. You're trying to make the argument that I don't understand the heliocentric model, I don't understand axial tilt, and therefore you can see Venus. But the fact of the matter is, axial tilt has nothing to do with this. You should not be able to see Venus from the night side of the Earth, certainly not after 11 o'clock p.m., and yet, here we have it. It's evidence, 100% evidence that the heliocentric model is wrong.
This is when the northern hemisphere is tilted towards the sun. So to see Venus at 11:43 p.m. is not at all surprising, as this itself is only 2 hours or so after sunset.
Okay, but where is your argument? It's only a couple hours, it's actually closer to 3 hours after sunset, but the fact of the matter is, geometrically speaking, if you're on the night side of the Earth and Venus is clear on the opposite side of the Earth, according to your theory, you should absolutely not be able to see it. And you're not proving anything, you're just disagreeing with me with no evidence. Well, of course, the evidence that you have is the fact that we can indeed see Venus, and you strongly believe that the Earth is a ball. Therefore, we can see Venus after 11 on the ball, but geometrically speaking, it's not possible. Only in your brainwashed, ignorant position is it possible.
Hardly the middle of the night.
11 or 11:45 p.m. is hardly the middle of the night? Jesus. And what would you classify as the middle of the night, Lyman Dan? And so, in case you think I'm making this up, you can just do a quick Google search for what time did Venus set on 6/16/18. And so this was according to an observer in Illinois. It says Venus set at 11:05 p.m., although it seems like if you were in Michigan that date, maybe a little higher elevation, who knows?
Yes, who knows?
Well, clearly you're not going to offer any other explanation, so the fact that some places has Venus set at 11:03, other places have Venus set at 11:43 on the same night, accounting for time zone differences, of course. I would imagine that it has to do with elevation or possibly being in a valley, but it's really not germane to the point. But I love how you just disagree without offering any evidence. And you insinuate the fact that I don't know exactly why Venus would set at different times for different locations off the top of my head in this instance. I postulated it's probably due to elevation, again, just off the top of my head, as the reasonings for this are not germane to the point. But you just insinuate that destroys my point, although your argument holds no water and it's not germane to the topic or germane to the proof at all.
I think what happened is you started making this video, realised that the Michigan Venus set times messed you up, so tried to fudge it with Illinois times.
I think you're absolutely wrong, and that has nothing to do with it whatsoever. The fact that we can see Venus after 11 o'clock p.m., period, whether it's 11:03 or 11:45 or hell, even 10:30 p.m., is really, really strong evidence against the heliocentric theory. It debunks the heliocentric theory, and the fact that there's a 45-minute set difference in different locations is irrelevant to the point. Now, I will admit I got a little bit confused because when I checked the set time for Venus locally, it said 11:03, and then for Detroit it said 11:43, and I assumed that was because of the elevation, but that fact has nothing to do with the point, and you're absolutely wrong in your assumption there, buddy.
I could be wrong, but it's got flat earther manipulation written all over it.
No, actually, it's got ball Earth retardation written all over it, because the fact of the matter is you should not be able to see Venus hours after sunset, regardless if it's the equinox or the solstice, because I don't think you can see space down beneath your feet on the day side of the Earth, can you? And the simple fact of observing Venus after, well after sunset.
I like how he does that little laugh to himself because he thinks he's cracked it. Bless him.
And yet you still refuse to consider the fact that Venus being visible after sunset is incompatible with your theory. It is a bit funny to me, but see, that's the problem with ball Earth people, is they absolutely cannot see when their model fails to describe observable reality. Now, of course, this doesn't prove that the Earth is flat, although it does debunk the heliocentric theory, which in my mind is just as good, because, of course, everyone is led to believe that the heliocentric theory, the ball Earth theory, is infallible. and is true and correct.
As I said at the beginning, if you don't understand the heliocentric model in its entirety, then you can't even begin to try and criticize it.
So that is the beginning and end to your argument, is that I don't understand the heliocentric model, therefore I can't criticize it. But the fact of the matter is, quite honestly, axial tilt, which is what you believe I don't understand, has no impact on this unless perhaps you're standing at the North Pole or very close to the Arctic Circle during the solstice. I can understand how that would be an argument. However, when you're talking about viewing Venus after 11 o'clock p.m., there's physically no way that you could possibly do that on the ball Earth. And if you'd like to demonstrate how you can see what's behind you without turning your head and without using a mirror, even if you tilt your head up 90 degrees, the fact of the matter is that it's geometrically impossible to see Venus after 11 o'clock p.m. especially, regardless of the time of year, and you have not done anything to debunk this point, to debunk this proof. Now, another huge part of this that isn't even mentioned, by you at least, is the fact that the angular size of Venus should place it far too small for the human eye to see. So, according to Lyons, the ball Earth theory, what you believe, at its furthest, Venus is 162 million miles away from the Earth. It's claimed that at its nearest, Venus is something like 25 million miles away. Okay, so let's take a look at the inner solar system according to the hypothesis of heliocentrism. Venus allegedly orbits the Sun at 67 million miles on average, so that's the radius of its orbit around the Sun, allegedly. Its inclination to the ecliptic is allegedly 7.01, might as well say 7 degrees. It's claimed that at its nearest, Venus is something like 25 million miles away. And the problem is that if an object that has an actual diameter of about 7,500 miles, as Venus is claimed to have, if that object is some 25 million miles away, it's going to be too small to see it. Now, the other big problem is, I'm assuming this is Earth's orbital trajectory and this is Venus's here, the light from Venus is only ever going to be reflected light from the Sun. So when Venus is actually at its closest, it would not be lit according to an observer on the Earth. When it's at its furthest, when it's fully lit over 150 million miles away, on the opposite side of the Sun, some 162 million miles away. When it's fully lit, that is, according to this model, it would be that distant, over 150 million miles. So we would never even expect to get a line of sight towards Venus after sunset, when it's clear on the opposite side of the Sun and over 150 million miles away. So you can pretty much forget about seeing Venus when it's fully lit after sunset. Also because, of course, it would be on the day side of the Earth. So if you're on the night side of the Earth, how are you ever going to see underneath your feet towards space through the Sun and Venus while it's fully lit? Now, the only times that you would possibly be able to see Venus after sunset would be when the reflected light from the Sun has a chance to hit your eye after sunset we're talking about now. So really the only possible places, even remotely possible, would be when it's on either side of the Sun, according to you here on the Earth. So what that means is it would be half lit, or like a quarter, like crescent lit, or on the far end of this, a 3/4 lit Venus, but certainly not a fully lit Venus. We'd never be able to see that after sunset, no less. Now, the big problem is, though, not just the angular size and the distance, because, again, a 7,500 mile diameter object removed 25 to 150 million miles, so it would be something like in between that when it's off to the sides relative to an observer on Earth, off to the sides of the Sun. That means it would be like half of its actual angular size. So it wouldn't even appear to be a 7,500 mile diameter object. It would appear to be half that, half lit. And yet, the biggest problem, I think, that you haven't even touched on is the fact that we can see Venus after sunset nearly every single month. And really, according to this model, that's the last thing you'd expect. Now, you can't just disagree with me and say that I don't understand this. You actually have to think about this for yourself and consider the fact that you're supposedly on a little tiny ball, and I'll zoom into it. You know, this is relatively to scale of what the Earth would be. Sorry for the low resolution here. Relative to the sun and this whole scheme of things here. It's very tiny. But the thing is day and night determine where you are subjectively on this hypothetical spinning ball. So we know that if it's almost 11:30 or after 11 o'clock p.m., you are necessarily going to be on the opposite side of that ball. So taking a bigger look at the Earth and keeping that whole setup in mind, the tilt of this object is not going to have any bearing on your line of sight towards something that's on the opposite side of the Earth and millions of miles away. Now, the other thing that you might argue, if you were to actually get into it, is the Venus's alleged tilt from the ecliptic, which is supposedly 7 degrees. So that would position the thing, you know, potentially at times, it wouldn't always be 7 degrees north or south of the ecliptic, but sometimes it would, and I'm sure that you would argue that it is necessarily going to be that point in time when Venus is way north of the ecliptic plane, conveniently to support your argument, but with no basis in reality, and in fact no real effect on this point. So Venus's divergence from the ecliptic plane is moot in this instance. It holds no bearing in this argument. You're going to say that we can see Venus because it's north of the ecliptic plane, but the problem with that is it's still going to be millions of miles away, dozens of millions of miles away at its nearest. And so even if it's positioned north of the ecliptic, say like where my mouse is here, you're still talking about 25 million miles off to the right of the screen. So to imagine that you're going to somehow see over this curve and see Venus millions of miles away, I'm sorry, but that's not going to happen. Now, we're not talking about two-dimensionally here, but we don't have to make this argument any more confusing than it is, because it really is simple geometry that we're talking about here. You can't see what's behind you. You can't see space down beneath your feet. You can see the ground in all directions to the horizon. Now, if you're out in the ocean, let's just say, and there's no sort of mountains or buildings to get in the way of your line of sight, your 360 degrees around you towards the horizon constitutes a plane of sight, and it is a tangent to the curve of the Earth in your model. And the simple fact is, Venus is never going to be visible after sunset, especially not hours after sunset, as we've seen recently. And it has no bearing whether Venus is north of the ecliptic plane or aligned to the ecliptic plane. This little guy here, his head would be way higher in altitude than the ISS is to scale. So this isn't to scale, but if you're a little microscopic dot on this ball, to think that you'd be able to see anything but what's in this direction towards the left of the screen and to the extreme of down here, you know, we're still talking about your line of sight would be tangent to this curve. So you're talking this would be visible space according to that observer. And then the same in the opposite direction. So to think that you're going to see an object that's millions of miles off to the right, on the day side of the Earth no less, is ridiculous. Your argument holds no water. Geometrically speaking, you should absolutely not be able to see Venus hours after sunset, unless perhaps you're standing very close to the northern Arctic Circle during the northern summer solstice. Being able to see Venus after sunset, hours after sunset, and yes, in the middle of the night, I would say 11:30 is the middle of the night, there's no argument against this. You should not be able to see it. Geometrically, it's very simple, and yet you're trying to confuse the topic, muddy the waters, and support the belief in a ball Earth without providing any sort of geometric or logical argument other than,
Ugh, TheMorgile's so stupid he doesn't understand the spinny, twirly, tilty ball.
give me a break.
Because you end up with the situation you find yourself in now. You might as well find yourself naked in McDonald's. it would be less embarrassing.
Well, you wouldn't catch me in McDonald's, period, because I don't eat that garbage. But, you know, I don't care what you people think of me, you globetards. I don't care if you think that I'm stupid or I don't understand your imaginary spinning tilty ball. The fact of the matter is you're wrong. It's very easy to think that you're right in this case when you're on the globe Earth side of the argument, because most of the world, including science with a capital S, theoretical alliance, will agree with you, and you feel as if you don't have to offer any tangible, geometric, logical evidence to support your side of this argument. But in fact, when smart, intelligent, logical people look at this and see that you have actually provided no sort of argument, hopefully they're able to discern for themselves that, yes, there is in fact a problem, a big, big problem in the heliocentric theory with seeing the inner solar system after sunset, well after sunset, regardless of, you know, the time of year, regardless of whether it's solstice or equinox, unless perhaps if you're standing at one of the poles. But, you know, who cares? You know, if I cared what people thought of me, do you really think I would publicly have proven the flat Earth for the last 3 years? You know, you can take this one single point and completely debunk the heliocentric model, but the problem with arguing these sorts of points is you get completely ignorant, uninformed, misguided, brainwashed people like yourself to argue that me, don't understand the heliocentric theory, and that it's because of something as ridiculous and stupid as axial tilt. And your argument hinges upon this idea that I've never heard of axial tilt in the heliocentric theory, and it just goes to show that you have not thought this through, and if you can provide any physical, geometrical, logical evidence to support your side of this particular point in argument, I would love to see it.
Oh, describing the tilty ball, the tilty spinny ball would take an entire video.
I will just mention that before I started making this video, which this one I actually got done in a single afternoon, few hours, the video that I'm responding to had 26,000 views. As of right now, just a few hours later, it's got 32,000 views, and it was uploaded today, the 21st of September, 2018. So, you know, this Simon Dan with his really kind of boring response videos that don't do anything except for poke fun at stupid, uninformed flat earthers, they sure do perform very well. You know, I gotta say that YouTube censorship goes beyond just merely silencing the voices and the proofs and the things that they don't want us to know about or don't want the masses to know about, but they also prop up and advertise for and support and aggrandize the voices and the things that they do want you to hear. So, you know, it just goes to show you that the censorship of YouTube and these other social media platforms is not just limited to censoring our voices. It also goes to the extent of amplifying and supporting and giving a uneven platform to voices that they want you to hear. So it really is a shame, and it goes to show you that, you know, I used to have a good deal of faith in things like Google searches and YouTube searches. And for many years it was the case where if you wanted information on something, regardless of what that thing was, you could type in your keywords for the search and find loads of relevant information that is germane to the topic or the keywords that you searched for. Nowadays, anymore, if you do a keyword search in YouTube, especially YouTube, for say flat earth, you're going to get a list of things like this guy and other complete shills who are allegedly debunking flat earth but doing nothing but regurgitating ball earth lies and debunking straw man false arguments against the flat earth. Yet this one single observation of Venus after 11 p.m. debunks the heliocentric theory.
No, it shows how completely clueless flat earthers are when it comes to astronomy.
So you fail to provide any sort of geometric or astronomical data to support your argument, but you say that it demonstrates how I don't understand astronomy. If you were to give this subject skeptical, logical thought, you would clearly understand and realize that this observation of Venus is not possible in the heliocentric model. It's a simple geometric impossibility, and your argument holds no water. There is no logical argument against this.
Apart from the one I've just given you.
You've given no such thing, sir. Stating the phrases axial tilt and flat earthers are stupid are not proofs of anything. How ridiculous that you would even call what you just did evidence to the contrary of this point.
He rambles on a little bit more in this video about the moon, but it's all along the same vein. Complete non-understanding of the heliocentric model and the application of a 2D brain.
You have done nothing but prove that you refuse to skeptically review the heliocentric theory, and quite frankly, I don't care if you disagree with me. I understand that you're disagreeing with me, hopefully from a position of ignorance and it isn't being intentionally deceptive, but you have nothing in this argument. Again, stating axial tilt, and I don't understand axial tilt, doesn't prove anything and it doesn't solve this problem. Honestly, I don't care how many people agree with you or disagree with you. If you look at the evidence here and skeptically try to understand how you could possibly see Venus after sunset and apply the given agreed upon heliocentric values to Venus and Earth and the ecliptic plane and the axial tilt, it comes up clear that you should not be able to see Venus after sunset.
Well, that's another flat earther dispatched. Globebusters. Thank you all very much for watching. A like and subscribe would be very much appreciated.
I gotta tell you, not impressed. You didn't show any sort of evidence that would contradict the point or the proof. All you've done is pretend that you have a viable position and then make fun of how I don't understand the heliocentric model. But clearly, you don't understand the heliocentric model. You have a two-dimensional brain because you're not capable of seeing what a huge, huge problem this is for the ball Earth. So to claim that I'm two-dimensionally thinking is a lie, and you, my friend, are the one who is not capable of understanding this very simple geometric point. And if you can show evidence that you should be able to see Venus after sunset upon a ball Earth scenario, I would love to see it.
Some drama at NASA now. There will be several spacewalks who attend to a major problem, and this time they're using snorkels while they do it. 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 Do it. Do it. Snorkels while they do it. Snorkels while they do it. Some drama at NASA now. There will be several spacewalks who attend to a major problem, and this time they're using snorkels while they do it.